Bizarre Brain Comics. Hello, Gary here for Bizarre Brain Comics. This is where I like to take a look at some older comics and talk about the creators, the characters, and the story and the art. Okay, today what we're going to take a look at is this book right here from Red Circle Comics, Lancelot Strong the Shield, #1. This is from 1983. And you may have heard of the Shield before. In fact, I mentioned something about the Shield in when I did that episode about the Mighty Crusaders from the 60s. Well, this is related, but not the same. Take a look in the big book of knowledge. Lancelot Strong the Shield, #1 from 1983. This is from Red Circle, which is an imprint of Archie Comics. Okay, the original Shield, who was the first patriotic comic book superhero character, predating Captain America. He was the most successful superhero character from the MLJ comics, which later became Archie, from the 40s. In 1959, the publishers of Archie Comics they wanted to launch a new version of the Shield. This may have been done by some inspiration from DC Comics when they, in the mid to late 50s, they rebooted a lot of their superhero characters, such as the Flash and Green Lantern, but in different versions, and had some success with that. Okay, so they wanted a new version of the Shield, as well as a new line of superhero comics. At that time, Joe Simon was moving to Archie Comics. Prior to that, he had been with Atlas, I believe, primarily with Atlas. And he agreed to do 2 books for them, The Shield and the new character, The Fly. A new version of the Shield was developed, and Simon had brought in an old partner on these books. It was Jack Kirby. And together, they had previously created Captain America. This new Shield title was called The Double Life of Private Strong. I was alluding to his superhero persona. And the character was the son of a scientist who had done experiments on his small son to achieve his full potential, giving the boy latent superpowers. And the scientist was killed by foreign spies, and the boy was raised by a farm couple who named him Lancelot Strong. As an adult, he joined the army, hence private. In this later book, he is Captain Strong, not Private Strong. I don't know why they thought they had to make him a commissioned officer. And as an adult, he joined the army, and his superpowers presented themselves, and he adopted the identity of the Shield. And this title only lasted a few issues. And in the early 80s, Red Circle, which is Archie, rebooted its line of superhero titles featuring the Crusaders and other characters they had published in the 60s, including both versions of the Shield. So at this time, for a short time, they used both versions of the Shield together. So when they were together, they usually just called this version Lancelot Strong amongst themselves to distinguish him from the original Shield. And the Lancelot Strong version, again, only lasted a few issues and was soon dropped, while the other superhero titles lasted a couple of years. Yeah, this one had this is issue 1, and I don't know if it's issue 2 or 3, which was just reprint material from the original 59 version of this Shield. So, has some history. I haven't seen anything of this version of the Shield since. They may have, because in the 80s, Red Circle brought the Crusaders and those affiliated heroes back. This Shield was dropped, and I think in a storyline he was killed, or something happened to him, and he was no longer in them. And then they just had the original Shield. Then in the 90s, DC bought the publication rights to the Crusaders and the related characters, and had their Impact line featuring these characters, but it was called Impact. They were still owned by Archie Comics. And then again in the early 2000s, they did it again. DC again published these characters, and they have appeared from time to time in Archie Comics, and at various times in their Archie's Digest comics, reprinted a lot of these older characters and stories. Okay, so let's go take a look at this boy, Captain Lancelot Strong, the Shield. Okay, and here you can see the full, better view of the cover illustration. Since it's not really associated with any film, I don't know why they have this film stuff along the side, just showing various pictures, which aren't even necessarily, and probably I don't think most of them even are in this issue. And I didn't mention the creators here. One of the writers, it was written by, what's his name, Stan Timmons and Rich Buckler were the writers. Rich Buckler has a long history in comics. He had done a lot of stuff for Marvel all through the 70s and 80s, and he's a fine artist. And here he is doing some writing. He was co-creator of the Marvel character Deathlock, and the artist was named Alan Weiss, the penciler. And I am unfamiliar with him. He does some really nice work in here. He drew this cover illustration, and I was surprised when I saw the credit here that the inker on the cover was John Severin, because it doesn't really, until I look real closely at it, I couldn't see the typical John Severin look to it, because quite often when he inks someone else's pencils, it looks so much like his work, like his own work. But this doesn't. But it's a really nice illustration. The nice figure of the character, the Shield here, and the female character here, and all these little side illustrations here. Some really nice little figures there, and very dynamic. And here he is saluting. That makes me think of Steve Trevor saluting at the opening credits of the old Wonder Woman TV show, because here he is still in the army. And here we open up to kind of a splash page, and which gives a brief recap recap of his origin. And the title of the story is The Death Star Dilemma. Here you have the credits. Some really nice artwork here. I'm like I said, I'm unfamiliar with Alan Wise. Some really nice work. Whether he did much more of in comics, I don't know. He probably did, but I just don't recognize his artwork from anything else. And then the second page is where we begin. It's an army base called Fort Sherman, and folding up this giant American flag here, and something's going on here on the base. A super secret scientific device is being stolen from this base. They had all kind of science stuff on this base, and is being stolen by one of the scientists who's actually involved in it, plus some associates who are MPs. And then suddenly, the Shield is right there. They've been onto them for a while. They just didn't know who. The Shield. And he's just like super strong, extremely quick. He can't fly, but he can leap pretty good, and extremely agile. And he can generate bioplasmic blasts from his hands, which I don't think he could do in the original version of him. Very star-spangled bannery, and he almost looks like an alternate version of Captain America. He's just hopping around, and in the ensuing fight, this gizmo, the Megatron device, is jostled and dropped in there, and it could be very dangerous if it's damaged. And he's not a single bullet is hitting him. He's running around. He's just knocking these guys for loops right and left, leaping around. And the scientist grabs this device, which is the Megatron device, and he says, "Uh-oh." The Shield says, "Uh-oh, be careful, be careful. It may have been damaged in that fall. Something bad can happen." And sure enough, that's exactly what happens. He tries to blast the Shield with it, and kablooey. He's almost killed, severely burned by the blast. I hate Shield, hate. So he's unconscious. So the other guys the other spies who were MPs managed to skip out, so they don't know who they were. And the Shield is... Then he's back in his alternate identity of the Shield. Now here's this general, what's his name? General Smith. He looks just like Thunderbolt Ross from the Hulk. And he's dressing Captain Strong down, because you see his security was for this device was largely part of his duties, and Smith knows that he is the Shield, and here they have a soft moment when they're exchanging sentiments. You've been like a father to me. Well, you've just been just like a son to me, and if I had a son, I wish I could be like you, and that kind of stuff. And then as he's about to leave, in walks this lovely young lady who is a scientist and also happens to be the daughter of the general. And this is her first. She kind of makes fun of his name, Lancelot, huh? Like the Shining Knight. Said, "Please, Miss Smith," and she goes, "Doctor." "I'm Dr. Smith." Not from Lost in Space, though. But she's a lovely lady. But then when she takes a closer look at him, she sees how attractive he is. And they flirt a little bit. And he blushes until her father brings her attention back to him. Yeah. No. Don't even think about it. He's in a dangerous occupation, and he could easily not come back from a mission. Of course, it doesn't say that he is the Shield. She doesn't know he's the Shield. Meanwhile, outside, this MP, who was one of the spies, is contacting whoever their superiors are. Remember, this was during the Cold War, 1983. And yeah, at the height of the Cold War. And here they have the patient who was Dr. Collins, who was the main spy trying to steal that stuff. And he's in the hospital, and they're about to take some takes some x-rays of him, when one of these other spies come in, clunks the doctor unconscious, and gags and ties up the nurse who is about to do the radiology, and is sabotaging it to kill him, so Collins can't talk to give away information, and zaps him, and the exposure from the blast of that weapon, plus this radiation from the sabotaged X-ray machines. It's a really nice figure. It's, I mean, horrifying what's happening, but it's a really, really nicely drawn figure. Again, over here, so the lights and shadows, the darks and shadows, are really nice, playing on that guard's face. And suddenly he is transformed into this Hulk-like figure. He's calling himself Megatron. Killed me. So he's stunned and dazed. And his intelligence is kind of phasing in and out. And everyone is rushing out of the hospital. And just as Lancelot Strong is approaching, the nurse runs away screaming, "What's happening?" And he says, "And I bet Dr. Smith isn't. I bet she's still in there. She might be in danger. Something's going on." So he quickly transforms himself into the Shield. And with his superpowers, he takes a giant leap, while the Megatron here says, "Doctor, fix me! Fix me!" And he smashes in. And all he wants to do is save the girl. And defeating Megatron is secondary at the moment. It says, but he's holding her hostage. If anything happens, so it's like, take me, just leave the girl. This is a really, really nice image right here on this panel. Some interesting page layout. All these long, thin panels, which actually show quite a bit. And then the angles kind of give it a more dynamic. It is all very, very dynamic, very good anatomy. The backgrounds are right spot on. Some really nice stuff here. And meanwhile, he's discovering that the Megatron powers are hurling objects at him, and it's not actually directing at him, but it's like gravity is fluctuating around the figure and causes the part of the hospital to collapse in on top of the Shield. And then Megatron takes the girl and he leaps away. He says, "With the power I now wield, traveling presents no problem, since I can merely reverse gravity." And he just zooms away. Here's the general, and he's obviously concerned for the welfare of his daughter. And then the Shield, who manages to get out of the collapsed building. See, very nicely drawn, depicted. Storytelling is really, really fine. And the radiation, there's radiation leakage from radioactive materials from the laboratories, and he manages to use a vault door to as a shield, to shield everyone from the radiation. Then he talks to the general and takes off after Megatron, and he promises his daughter will be returned to him safely. Meanwhile, Megatron, his intelligence level is going up and down the scale. He's going from dumb brute to his coherent self. And she's trying to reason with him when he's more coherent. And says, "We can help you. We can help you." But just as she thinks she's about to talk him down, the shield arrives, and the battle is started anew. Really nice figure. Breaking the panels makes it very dynamic and gives a nice 3D effect. But really knocks him for a loop. He tries his bioplasmic blasts, and then he realizes he's just expending energy and he's getting weaker, while Megatron isn't. So he's got to try to make Megatron use his expend his energy, wear him down, because he's noticed that the angrier he gets and the more he expends his energy, the greater his personal gravitational field increases and his size increases. So he just lets him more or less pummel him, taking the brunt of his anger until he reaches a critical mass, and then the Shield. Oh no! What's happening to me? And the Shield grabs the girl and, using his super speed, runs off to save the girl as the Megatron basically explodes in a what would be a very small nuclear discharge. And he saves Dr. Smith. They're hit by the blast, but they got far enough away that they're safe. And he takes her and returns her to her father. And here's the only hint we get of the boss, the big boss, someone somewhere. We don't know. Yes, I understand. Operative Collins has perished. So we don't know what actually happened. We don't know who this is, what's going on behind the scenes. And then it has a little teaser for next time. The dual life of Lancelot Strong here, presented in the back-to-back headshots. And then a teaser for the next issue of Red Sun. And I think that was the only other original story for this. The other after that was, like I said, 1 or 2 issues of reprint material. And then he made a few appearances in the Mighty Crusaders until something happened to him. And then there's a backup story, which I'm not going to cover, but it says, who I mentioned before, Steel Sterling. And he is referred to as the Man of Steel. And as I said before when I mentioned him when I did the Crusaders episode, he was the first character to be referred to as the Man of Steel, as before Superman was. It was right around 1940 or so when he made his first appearance. And he's super strong. He's basically Superman, but can't fly and has no vision powers. So. And I also noticed that when I was recapping the origin of this version of the Shield, is that it's kind of a combination of the origin of the character Hugo something or other from Philip Wiley's novel The Gladiator, which was a big inspiration for the creation of Superman, along with Doc Savage. And then a little bit of Superman in that he was found as a child and raised by an elderly farm couple out in the farmlands, middle America here somewhere. So that's kind of neat. And so that's all I want. The artwork is great. The story is kind of abrupt, but a big, strong introduction to the character. And must not have sold too well, though. I liked it. I kind of like the original Shield better myself, Joe Higgins. But I don't dislike this character, and I really like the artwork in this. As I said, I'm not familiar with Alan Weiss. What other stuff he may have worked on, and how long he worked in the field. Maybe he still is, and I just don't know it because I haven't been able to keep up with current comics for the last 20 odd years because they're so expensive and so convoluted. You can't pick up just a single issue because you're always going to be in the middle of a storyline. Okay, that's about all I've got for this version of The Shield. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope you liked it. Like, share, subscribe, share with your other comic book friends. This is some old-fashioned stuff that was trying to be updated. And so share it with some of your classic hero friends. And remember, comics are art.